Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Devonis. I'm an inspirational speaker. I am also an advocate for anti-bullying, autism, and suicide prevention. And I am here today to talk about like anti-bullying and suicide prevention because September was suicide prevention, and this month in October is anti-bullying. But it's one of the three awarenesses in October. That's why they call it Awareness Month. And here with me, I have my friend Matt, who is also on Morphin Legacy, known as the Ranger Philosopher.
That's right. My name is Matt Leslie. I'm from Tulsa,
Suicide
Oklahoma.
prevention, and
Uh, I I don't necessarily have
my
a ex-
apologies on that part.
no
I
problem.
forgot that I had the screen on from a previous thing, so I
All right.
so it's fine.
Yeah,
Sorry
no
about that,
problem.
people.
No.
Um, so anyway, throughout this broadcast, we will be talking about like the do's and the don'ts about anti-bullying and how to help people who are thinking about committing suicide. Talk about the facts, what we think on the situations at best, and if you guys want to ask any questions, write in the comments below, and I will look at the questions that pop up on my screen right here. And without further ado, I will get things started with, we're going to start with anti-bullying. And the first thing is about bullying in schools. Now, when I was in school, I was picked on a lot because I have high functioning autism. And that, because nowadays, kids will bully others with special needs because they find them easy targets. Do you think that's logical, Matt?
Uh, yeah, it's kind of innate to want to assert dominance and to especially in high school. I mean, it's one thing to. I mean, I think bullying in different grades should be considered different topics because it's different for a 15-year-old to bully another 15-year-old than it is for an 8-year-old to bully an 8-year-old. When you're talking about it in high school specifically, I think it's a territory thing, it's a dominance thing, it's an uh, alpha predator thing, male and female. So I think there's some validity to that. Yes.
So it's almost like trying to be like the best in the school. Like you want to be like one of the cool kids. Like that's
Yeah.
that's like one of the reasons. Another reason is they're either hiding the fact that they have a dark past, or they're doing it for peer pressure. What do you think about that?
Uh, you know, I guess it also depends case by case. It's all based on I would think that no two acts of bullying or any two cases of bullying are exactly alike because of the diversity of the individuals. It can be a group thing, it can be a peer pressure thing of wanting to reject a certain uh, uh, type of person or maybe maybe a rival person because what is bullying, we have to kind of define what is bullying. Is a football player who gives crap to a basketball player that they go to the same school, is that, would that be considered bullying? Hey, football's better than basketball. Basketball's for guys who can't hit, or basketball, vice versa, whatever. So uh, 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 I
It's
forgot what I was
okay.
saying,
It's
but
okay.
I mean, yeah. So I kind of agree with that, but it's uh,
Yeah, but getting into the
it could be
topic,
anything. It's a lot of. I mean, we would have to narrow it down, I guess.
yeah, because bullying is like can go into different types of categories, which is like physical and emotional, which is our next thing to get about. What is bullying? And sometimes it's making people feel uncomfortable. You're either hurting them by kicking, hitting them, punching them, tripping them, etc., or even worse, name calling or spreading nasty rumors. And that's another thing that's a problem, because now we're living in the digital age, and if you spread a rumor about someone that's not true, that's on the internet. That's never going to go away. So
and people are inclined to focus more on negative news than positive news usually, or at least younger folks are. So when they, it's drama is juicy, and I think that's why a lot of tabloids and things are very popular. And that's human nature. That goes back. We want to know, kind of who is not doing as so. Rumors and spreading rumors is very powerful, because it's effective, because it's, it activates the human mind in the most, it affects us in one of the most profound ways that someone can affect another human being, it just by spreading something negative. So
yeah, because getting into like school, if someone bullies another, you don't know for sure if they actually feel better about it or if they're hurting inside. So it's like, what should you do about situations like this? One of the main things is never keep bullying a secret, because you have no idea what that situation could be about. It could mean someone's life is in danger, or even worse. But I don't know if there's even worse than having your life threatened, which I did once in high school. Someone threatened my life over a misunderstanding, and I didn't want to go back into school that next day, but I had to. And they put me in the office with that person, and that's when we realized that it was a misunderstanding. But that never goes away. Once you threaten someone's life, that's a whole nother ball game. And
first impressions are also very powerful, and whatever the most significant interaction you have is with someone that you don't know or barely know or whatever, that's going to be what sticks with you. So even if I can see all your interactions after you resolved the death threat is you still kind of look at them, where you have to keep an eye over your shoulder. So
yeah, another thing you have to do is never escalate a situation. If you do see someone getting bullied, don't get into that fight as well, because that is only going to escalate it into a more situation. More kids could get into that fight. Someone could get hurt. What do you do in that situation? You either get an adult and tell them, or you just stop. Like, tell them to not fight and to work it out. Don't resolve things with your fist.
I'm gonna challenge you on that one, because
okay.
I come from the South. We're very much about self-defense and the right to defend yourself in a situation where you need to. And a popular idiom out here is don't ever don't start any crap, don't start any trouble. But if you find yourself in trouble, or if you find yourself in a fight, finish it. Don't start any fights, but if you're in one, finish it. Because if it comes down to it, and you have to throw down, then are you gonna? It's not really practical to lay down and take it, or to go find an adult sometimes, because what would be the response time of a teacher? How many seconds, how many punches can it get in those seconds or those minutes? And what are the dynamics of the fight? Anything could happen. So I would say that self-defense is a reasonable option, and finishing what somebody else wants to start is acceptable.
And that's understandable too, because that's your prerogative. And I live in the North, and I don't know what part of the North, but I'm just going to keep saying the North. Some types of reasons why you don't also do self-defense, because if you're with someone and you get into that fight, what if that person gets hurt? Because then it's going to be on
What
your.
if you get hurt? What if you get hurt?
I
What
would
if
just
you
try to,
what if you don't put up your dukes and they smash your nose bone, and you could avoid it by either stepping away or smashing his nose bone first.
that's true, but there's a problem. I don't know how to fight. I may watch Power Rangers, but I do not know how to
Yeah.
fight. So even if they do punch me, I'll just fall to the ground.
Mm.
But here's another way to handle the bullying. You have to tell someone you trust, because there are some people out there who are not trustworthy. But the people you can trust are an adult, a teacher, a supervisor, and most importantly, the police, because nowadays bullying is actually becoming laws and policy for different states. And if you break those laws, you could be charged as like a child or an adult, because they've done that before with certain cases. Like, trying to remember that girl's name, because I live here in Rhode Island. Up in Massachusetts, there was a case where a 15-year-old from Ireland was bullied, and she committed suicide because of how much the kids at her school terrorized her and spreading rumors. And it's like, actually, some days after she died, they charged her classmates with like adult charges as well as minor charges, because most of those kids involved were minors. So their charges cannot be pulled off record, because once it's in the juvie record, they're sealed. You can't go into them. But two of them were tried as an adults, and they were charged with attempted rape, promoting suicide attempt, I think, and there was this one more charge. Oh, reckless endangerment, I think. And they all agreed to plead to lesser charges if they apologized to the parents. Two of the girls did, but the others didn't. And now they got to live with that for the rest of their lives, knowing that they terrorized a girl and she'll never get to have a life, but they do. But they have to live with what they did.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think well, first I think legally one of the official charges when something like that happens is conspiracy to something. It's conspiratorial, and it's considered conspiratorial, and it's also difficult, I think, for younger people, because this was high school, right? This was a high school
This was a high
case.
school up in Massachusetts, but I don't think it was anywhere near Boston. I don't know what city.
Well, yeah, I mean,
But it wasn't
still,
that, but it was
well,
national news.
well, what I'm saying is the age of people in high school, they don't always see the full picture. They think very one-dimensionally, and they don't always see those repercussions. It's not, they don't have a whole lot of life experiences outside of mainly just going to school their whole lives and whatever their parents decide to expose them to. So it's very likely that this girl going through with it was not kind of on their list. They didn't expect it to happen. So that, or at least that's what I'm theorizing, kind of psychologically. It would not. It doesn't seem like it would. Be it kind of the magnitude of it, the heft of what they were saying and doing was not apparent to them. So because their minds were so underdeveloped, but
because if their minds were underdeveloped, do you think they should have been charged with as adults, two of the teens?
I think well, number one, it depends on the charges, and number two, it depends on the other details of the case. I don't know the rest of the details of the case, but if they acted in a way that where they knew what they were doing, and they were relatively competent, I think adult charges would be it. I just don't see somebody going to juvie for something like that. It doesn't seem acceptable. It seems like, they really need to be rehabilitated and jolted and corrected by adult jail for something like that, or at least that's just my opinion. I don't know. Again, I don't know the details of the case.
Okay. Yeah, this was years ago, but since it happened near here, that case still haunts me. And
now there was that one chick who they revealed all the text messages of her texting her boyfriend and getting him to kill himself, and it was pretty
yes,
innate and detailed. I forget, that was pretty recently.
yes.
But that chick, I forget how old she was, but that's full on like psychopathic. She knew he was in the right frame of mind. She knew what she was telling him to do. She knew what she was guiding him through, and she definitely deserves the full ball peen hammer of justice.
Yeah, they may try something like promoting a suicide attempt, which is in anti-Carrican law to prevent doctor-assisted suicides. So I don't know if that will be the case for what she did, but I think that's what she should be charged with. But I think that would mean, like, I don't know if it's either a misdemeanor or a felony, but I think from what I read, it's only a misdemeanor.
Oh, they should throw the book at her. I tell you what, because you read those texts, you read how cold she was, and she was sure. She knew what she was saying, and she knew what she was, convincing him to do. So behavior very typical of someone who would be considered psychopathic, like psychologically diagnosed as psychopathic.
Now, getting into another topic, this is about the LGBT community, because this year was a big year for everyone in the community, because the Supreme Court Justice decided to let same-sex marriage be legal in all 50 states. And that was one of the reasons kids were bullied back then, because they were either gay or lesbian, bisexual, transgender. But now that the Supreme Court made this ruling, do you think that the bullying is going to get less even more, or is it just going to continue on?
I've thought about it a little bit since the ruling came out, and I think it's going to bring it down. I think, it's already pretty tame. I tell you what, I'm from Oklahoma, the buckle of the coveted buckle of the Bible Belt, home of Oral Roberts University. And Oral Roberts was, I'm a Christian, but oh my God, Oral Roberts was insane. He was crazy. So that being said, where I went to high school, being gay was actually pretty cool. When I went to high school, the people there were all pretty tolerant. I went to a pretty big high school. It was about 2,000 kids all together, and there was not a lot of bigotry or intolerance out there. And I mean, this was like 5 to 10 years ago, and it was actually pretty tame for being in the heart of a place that should not be that way. We Christians and evangelicals especially, because we are home to many evangelical groups are not that tolerant, and they're famously intolerant of the LGBT community. But we had the Gay Straight Alliance before like national news even knew it existed. We were so far ahead of like what I thought Oklahoma would or should be. And so if it was all right 5 to 10 years ago, it's definitely going to get better all across the land. And something else I was thinking about was as far as it goes, I think if you're an American and you pay your taxes, you should be able to do whatever you want. You should be able to marry whoever, it doesn't matter. So thinking of it as more of a of a um not necessarily of a rights issue, but as a government intrusion, or a relationship with the government issue. I think what the primary reason I think bullying and intolerance of the LGBT community will go down is because Christianity and the Bible will always promote. There will always be Christians who think that it is wrong, and that's just how it's always going to be as long as the Old Testament is intact as it is. I mean, it states very clearly in the original Greek text. It's the translation is very clear. What it says, homosexuality is a sin, or whatever it is, man lay with another man as he lays with a woman. It's an abomination. That's very clear. But we're looking at it as far as a relationship between the same-sex couple and the government. So what we're seeing now is the government coming out and saying, this is okay. This is, we are not restricting. There are no restrictions on who you can marry. So I think if the government views that, if the national consensus, in the Supreme Court, in the ultimate law, the primary rulers of the land have decreed this, that you can marry whoever you want, then I think that's going to cause more people, maybe who are not Christians and are still intolerant anyway, to maybe consider, well, maybe it's not such a bad deal if the government is behind it. And I feel like government decisions usually affect, they sway public opinion many times, as much as we don't, as much as I don't like it. Anytime the government decides something, it makes people, it affects public opinion, and that's kind of a fact. So I think it'll gradually start to get better, not among Christians, but among kind of the general consensus. Any better than it possibly is. I don't know how it can get much better. Going to Jenks High School and everything being just fine. Not one incident. I'm telling you, it's insane thinking back on it now that there was none of that. There should have been. It should have been. My school should have been riddled with people who gay bashed or beat, even kids who watch Glee up in between classes. It was like there's none. There's zero of that, and so that's kind of what I think. It's already pretty good, but it's gonna get better.
Yeah, people who watched Glee actually had the courage to be who they wanted to be because of the characters who were in that show.
Mm-hmm.
That and other reasons. That's why Glee is like popular to so many teens and such an inspiration. And yeah, I actually have a lot of people who are in that community. I actually have a cousin who is gay. And to me back then, I didn't even know what it was about because I was young at the time when they were discussing those kind of issues. But when I did go into high school, one of the kids that used to bully me was a lesbian. And I thought, if she's going to tease me for having a disability, I'm going to tease her for being what she is. And then when my mom heard about that, she went ballistic at me. If I could show you like a cartoon, her eyes were about to pop out of her head when she heard what I was about to do. She even yelled at me for it. And I said, why do you care, Mom? She's bullying me. Why can't I just make fun of her because of what she is? And she told me, because it's no better. Because you were raised better than that. And it doesn't matter if she's straight or gay. She is who she is. You should actually try to reason with her. And now that I've gotten a little bit older, I can understand that a little bit better. And I actually like don't have a problem what lifestyles people choose. Like, if you want to live that lifestyle, because my cousin is, I love my cousin with all my heart, and that's not going to change no matter what it is. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, again, look, if you're an American and you pay your taxes and you're a good fellow or lady, it doesn't matter. You know, we're all in it together. Sexuality should not like define uh anything about you necessarily, or I mean, if it God, what am I trying to say? It shouldn't affect the way I view them. It's not. It has no. It has never had any. It has never had any place, and it still doesn't have. I don't care. It's not that. It just I don't care. Who cares? I'm
Yeah, who
straight. Who
cares?
cares? I,
Let people live their
no,
lives.
and I think that's when the true equality is going to kick in. Like when people say, "Oh, I'm gay. Oh, I'm bi." Who cares? I mean, go
Who
work.
cares? We're
Go,
still friends.
yeah. Go to school. Go do what you're supposed to do. Go to work. Great. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Just be
think,
happy.
yeah. And that reminds me. Your story reminds me of when Caitlyn Jenner, like last month,
Mhm.
you know, she, she gets the transition and then is about to go on the Ellen DeGeneres show and wants to talk about like how she still believes in traditional marriage and like still against gay rights, even though she's trying to campaign for oh, I am who I am, but like
Yeah, because I was just gonna say,
supporting gays. Like,
I was just gonna say, you can't like support one thing without supporting the other thing because it
yeah,
kind of falls into the same category.
well, in general, either everything's okay or nothing is. There's no, I feel like we have some pretty clear definitions of what is right and what is wrong, and uh, just it's something either everything is okay or nothing is. So I just contradicted myself, but it's you can't have. I guess specifically in this case, you can't have one without the other.
That's true.
So just do what you're supposed to do. If you're paying your taxes, who cares? Do what makes you happy. I'm doing what makes me happy, and I mean, if uh, and that just means I'm doing whatever straight white guys from the South like to do. Just I like doing average stuff. So do what you like to do. If that involves you, uh, you know,
And
crap.
I am who I am. I'm just a autistic woman who
Drug
might
Muslim.
not who might not date in her life, but is a little bit of a geek. But if you guys have a problem with it, just don't say anything at all.
Yeah, and people are gonna naturally gravitate to each other. I mean, once you become an adult and your mind develops out of the high school mentality, it's like, and you start finding the people you want to be around and who want to be around you. It doesn't matter. Nothing. No, I mean, the whatever backlash or bullying that you experience, it will not matter because you're doing what makes you happy, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point of being alive. Just do what makes you happy. Do good work and do what makes you happy. Who cares?
That should be my new slogan. Do what makes you happy. Who cares?
It works. It works.
Yep.
It's very concise.
So now the next topic, we are finished up with anti-bullying. Now we are going on to the suicide prevention because I recently became a field advocate for the American Suicide Prevention, and they're one of the top research groups that studies about why people commit suicide and how we can actually stop it. because when I was 12 years old, I almost committed suicide, and I still think about that every day because I ask myself if I had actually gone through with it, then I wouldn't have gotten to where I am right now trying to help people. So that's why I joined AFSP, because I want to like show people that there's more to life than there's no, like, even though there's darkness in the world, there is always light. And I just hope that we can tell that to people who are thinking that way. What do you think?
I think again, people who are suicidal or have suicidal ideation, they adult or child or teenager, whatever, uh, if you're in that state of mind, you are your thought process has been altered. It's not thinking properly. You have a kink in the machine. The engine isn't running the way it needs to. Our brains are set to work in a certain way, and when they're affected by the external stimuli of the world, and the way we perceive things, then that affects that puts a wrench in the machine, and ceases proper function. So it's hard to understand when you're in that mindset to think about how final it is. It's usually a solution. It's always suicide. When you're considering suicide, it's thinking of how can I solve this thing that is grown on me, that I can't seem to get rid of. And the way I like to equate it is start reading a book, start reading your favorite book, or a book that you find interesting. Start reading Harry Potter, and close a book after the third chapter, and throw it away. And well, there's a whole rest of the book left to go. Why it is very strange to throw the book away, right? So why would you end your story there? Why would you? So I feel like that kind of makes that gets the engine going again, and kind of, because the human mind is mostly wired for self-preservation. We're wired to keep warm when it's cold, and cool when it's hot. We're wired to eat when we're hungry, and we're wired to use the facilities when we need to be relieved. We're wired to have shelter. We're wired to go to sleep. We're wired all these things so that we can keep going as long as we can. So when you're in suicide mode, those functions kind of turn off, and you stop seeing things in the self-preservation mode. So when you say when you bring that idea that the story ends, which is also very relatable for pretty much everybody, because a lot of ways that we learn things, especially as young kids, is through storytelling, is through mythology, and fictional ways to impart morals and cultural mores onto our young. So we're taught from a very young age to look to storytelling as a way of learning about the world around us. So when you say the story ends with this suicide that you're considering, when you throw away the book, it's like, well, what's in the rest of the book? What's in the rest of the book? Well, I don't know. You got to find out. You gotta write it yourself.
Because in life, there's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. We all know that. So if you were like just stopping at the middle, then
you close the book and you're done with the book. Well, that doesn't really help, because I mean, does Harry freaking find Voldemort or not? Is he what's going to happen?
True. Now, from the facts and the figures about suicide, there are top 5 states that have hit the radar, and that is Montana, Wyoming, Utah, New Mexico, and Alaska. Now, I can only guess like why Montana could be on the list, but did you hear anything like? Do you know why those would be the top 5 for most people to live and
Mm.
to do suicide?
I would bet Alaska is up there because they have a large Indian population, and Indians are alcoholics, and alcoholics are known to be suicidal when they get to, hitting the juice pretty heavy. So I bet that's um, part of their Indian population. I don't know about Montana. Um,
Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and New Mexico.
Only thing I can think of is like maybe the populations are smaller in
Mm-hmm.
those areas, but for some reason, and it's comparatively normal to the other states that are more populous, so it drives their average deaths or average suicide number up. That's the only thing I can think of that the ratio would be higher because of the math. But and of course Indians, drunks. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's like unless you can like know them like why people do it and the numbers on it, there's like no you can't understand these equations.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and are more people offing themselves in the city or in the country, or maybe middle towns? Are they loners, or do they have families? What I think need to find a correlation. I don't have the data, but I maybe there's a correlation in there somewhere.
Actually, there is like a number that should like be noticeable because our veterans like are like at 22.2% of the people who commit suicide. Do you think that's because of like what they've seen out there in the war?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely because of wartime experience, and some people just can't handle it. I think I think we're a little bit mentally not as tough as former generations because we have it pretty easy. You look at the World War II, uh, the fellows who fought World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and as kids they grew up in the Great Depression. They grew up in like the toughest time like our nation has ever seen. Just tough times. And they were kids, man. They were little kids, so they were tough enough to just kind of wear basically canvas uniforms and 12-pound rifles and lug it all through France and through you know Japan, or the islands of Japan, and just go to war for 4 years through just thick, tough environments with carrying all their equipment with them. And it's they came out of it and they were like, hey, GI Bill, good deal, because anything was better than the life they had. Because the Great Depression was still going on by the time we entered World War II. We were kind of coming out of it thanks to social change, but it was a very tough time for those guys. And by the time they became soldier age, war age, they were mentally some of the toughest people that America has ever seen, I think. So now we have all these kind of people, millennials basically, that you and I grew up with, who in a period of time that's actually very prosperous. The 90s was not too bad for
Now that
America.
we're in the 21st century.
Yeah, and that kind of compared with how bad it is fighting, how intense the Islamic militants are, because I would bet most of veteran suicides are guys who were in the Middle East or exposed to combat with Islamic militants. So those guys are intent. You never know. It's just totally they'll never win the hearts and minds over there, and it's like, when you strap bombs, to like little infants, to babies, and then try to give the babies to tank crews, and then the tank crews go in the tank, and you detonate the bomb on the baby. That's you can't walk away from that intact. You can't hear that story, or be the buddy of the guy who gets blown up and think, damn, that's heavy, or think, wow, that could have been me if we had come through here a minute later. Like, that would have been my tank, that would have been my Humvee. And any piece of garbage on the road out there is a possible IED. And anything on the road, any kind of junk. And just think about next time you're driving around, look at anything on the side of the road, look at roadkill even, and think, how tough it must be to be back here as a veteran after one tour, two tours, sometimes up to like 8 tours of duty.
Mm-hmm.
And have to go through just really intense adrenaline dump, and your body go into critical stress over just a trash bag that's a little closer to the street than the rest of them, and just the intensity of something so small as that. So I can easily see veteran suicides being a big number, because it's warfare is tough. Warfare is always tough, but the Islamic militants are making it much, much tougher.
I do know one thing why they also do it, because I do know it is never easy to take a life, even if that life is what saves a number of others, because right or wrong, we're all human beings, but when you take the life of someone, that image stays in your mind for the rest of your life. It's like it's messy, and it could be hell. So I can understand that reason as well.
Yeah, I got a couple of buddies who killed plenty of guys over there, and they say, dude, Matt, I see these guys every night. Like, before I go to bed, I see them every night. I know all of them. I know all their faces, and that must be scary. It must be a living nightmare. So that's something you got to live with, and not everybody is mentally equipped to handle that. Some people are, and some people can manage to justify it, for the entirety of their lives. But you don't know, you don't know who's going to break until they do. I think you don't know what a person's made out of until they start to crumble.
True. In fact, in 2010, it is said that suicide took more lives than war, murder, and national disaster.
Oh yeah, and that's a suicide is actually a big number in gun violence. A lot of there's a big talk in our country right now about gun laws and gun numbers, gun violence numbers, but a big fraction of the numbers that the anti-gunners want to put out are just suicides, just people who got guns or had guns and decided to off themselves. And that's not really fair data as far as the gun debate's concerned, but that's another issue. So it's it's pretty significant number.
Now, do you think that this is accurate? Like, males are 4 times more likely to die by suicide, and it's 3 times for women to die by suicide. Do you think that's a legitimate fact?
4 times and 3 times compared to what? 3 times what number?
It just says here, males are 4 times more likely to die by suicide, but females attempt suicide 3 times as often. So
they do it 3 times. So I guess I don't understand the data, but I would say Yeah, males are more likely to do it than females. I think females, females are uh, uh, more verbal than males, and they rely a lot on emotional support and being nurturers and comforters. So I think naturally females have the equipment to process things like depression more effectively than males, because males are expected to absorb it and internalize it and be be tough. We're supposed to be tough guys. So and that means not bitching, basically. And that extends to basically to the the work environment, because working really manly jobs like I was on a piping crew. We welded and fitted pipes at a oil refinery here in Tulsa, and we don't have time to bitch or to say oh, it's too hot, it's too sweat. We had to work 100-degree summers in long sleeve uh, fireproof shirts, and then wear gloves and hats and pretty thick jeans, and it got hot, and we don't have time for all that kind of processing how bad things can get out there or anywhere else. The oil fields especially. Oh my God. Uh, because there's work to do, and if we're not going to do the work, then who is? So, and then that transfers that, and I agree with that mindset. You gotta, when you go to work, you go to your job, you give it everything you have, and you act like you want to be there. So that then I feel like has transferred to the emotional side of or the the emotional downtime side, and kind of being expected to follow the same rules. Don't bitch, put up or shut up, and be the tough guy that you were out in the oil field, because would that same guy who just fitted 20-inch pipe or lifted in a new I don't know, engine, generator, something. We did a lot of big moving for huge pieces of equipment, and settled it. So it's like you implement that toward, like, oh, I feel sad, or I feel towards feeling badly about things as a person. So it's I believe that males, and especially again with the veteran numbers up, we know that there are more males than females in the military. So I bet that also contributes to the males are more likely than females to commit suicide number.
Understandable. Now, for the last 10 minutes, we'll be talking about the do's and the don'ts, like about speaking about suicide, because I want to be an inspirational speaker, but there are certain things that you do not want to say to people who are in these kind of situations. So I have a list right here that I got from a walk that I went to yesterday. It's called the Out of Darkness Walk, which is also part of the American Foundation for Suicide Preventions. They do this walk to raise money to help raise money to do suicide research. And I walked like 5 miles. That was like the whole length of it, 5 miles. And I've seen a lot of people, like with their families, have these shirts on. And it was really sad at the time to see that. And they give you these beads, like I got a blue one because I support the cause, but there were other ones if you lost a spouse, if you lost a sibling, if you lost a child to suicide. So it's really fun. It's really not fun, I shouldn't say fun, but it's like a good organization to walk for. But if I to speak about it, like these are the do's and the don'ts of like speaking about suicide. And one of the things you want to do is be at a safe place in your recovery. And that's like, trying to figure out what that is. Like, it reflected from your own frame of mind. Like, if you had an experience about it, tell it in the safest way as possible, because you want to try to tell people who want to commit suicide that it's not the right choice to make. And one of the things you want to avoid, don't like how am I supposed to say this? Glorify suicide. And what that means is think of it as the honorable or romantic way, because if you see that in movies, remember, that's just in movies. We're talking about real life here. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know what you mean by like don't glorify it. It seems like, you know,
It says portraying suicide as honorable or romantic can influence vulnerable individuals to view suicide as a visual option.
yeah, and I think that's a pretty obvious no, because otherwise, if you are talking about that's basically what that girl was telling her boyfriend was, this is the right thing to do, this is honorable, this is the way you should go. So I think if you're doing that already, if that's what you're talking about, then you're not listening to this podcast, or you don't intend to help that person. You're already on the path of trying to get them to end it. So you're already in a different place if you're talking about that. So yes, I agree, definitely. Don't do that, because that's the complete opposite.
Anyway. Another thing you want to do, if you're talking to these people, provide mental and health resources, like send them to like a home that can help people with like mental illnesses, because one of the lead reasons why people commit suicide is because people have mental illnesses. And so you may want to take them to like a local hospital, or check the AFSP website for more information how to help people, even if they have mental illnesses or not, to seek help. Or another good thing you can do is call the suicide prevention hotline, which I got a magnet for at the walk yesterday. And this is you can't see the number, but I'll read the number. But this is a hotline to speak to people if you are thinking about committing suicide. These people are always online to talk to you, to to calm you down and tell you that that's not the way out of life. And they also have a website, suicidepreventionlifeline.org, and their number is 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255. And that's one of the do's that you would do to talk about suicide. But one of the things you do not want to do is avoid portraying suicide as an option. And suicide is not a rational backup plan or coping behavior.
Yes, very much so. I agree. That's kind of more the same, I think. Just if someone's going to do it, don't tell them to do it. It seems pretty simple to me.
Mm-hmm. One of the things you have to do is practice your speeches. If you say something wrong, that'll lead the person to assume that you don't know what you're talking about. And one of the things you do not want to do, in fact, don't even try to even learn about them, avoid details about suicide methods. Because if you tell people how other people have committed suicide, that's going to give them ideas to do it themselves. Wouldn't you think so?
Yeah, don't send your buddy any links about how to tie a noose. That's not that would not be appropriate. Don't be like, oh man, I knew a guy who swallowed a Frisbee one time. Dude, you gotta fold it at the edges first, and then you got it. And then you shove it down there, and yeah, that I saw it in a ninja book one time, man. Yeah, swallow a Frisbee. That's crazy.
It's like,
is that what you're gonna do, man? It's dumb.
Like, please don't.
Come on.
And
what are you thinking?
And last thing you do want to do is Like, know your audience. Obviously, you're talking to people who are thinking about attempting suicide, but you want to consider who you're talking to. It could be students, clinical people, survivors, mostly survivors, because you get to talk to people who actually did try to do it, but now you get to tell them, now you understand that that was not the right way to go or to do. Oh my God, I can't believe I said go. To do. I'm sorry about that, people. And one of the last things you do not want to do is avoid the phrases like commit suicide or successful attempt. Because if you kind of put those in your speech, you're kind of getting like preferred terms of ending life or died by suicide. These phrases of suicide stigma and moral judgments. So it could change a person's judgment, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, it can. I think mostly people are going to be in a certain spot, and they're usually not going to budge. At least in my experience, they don't really budge a whole lot. But yeah, if you're going to swing them one way, don't you know don't do all that.
Mm-hmm. And that is basically it for the Unity Week broadcast. Like I said, there are many resources if you are either being bullied or attempting suicide. For being bullied, go to someone you trust if you are being bullied, or if you're trying to stop a situation, don't escalate it. Or if Matt says if you live where he is, like in self-defense, then if that becomes the case, then do protect yourself.
Yeah, don't start any fights, but if you find yourself in one, finish it for your own safety. If someone's going to bleed, it better be the other guy. Self-preservation. You always come first.
And make sure you have witnesses so there's no corroborative story
Yeah.
for. And if you are thinking about suicide, there's the National Suicide Hotline that I just mentioned earlier. It is 1-800-273-8255, which that means like talk at the end. But they will help you to calm yourself down and to tell you that that's not the only option. And if you do know someone who is thinking about suicide, you got to go to someone, because they could potentially do that as soon as you find out, and it could be too late by then. So this is a broadcast that's in honor of both the Suicide Prevention Month and Anti-Bullying Awareness Month. I would like to thank Matt for being one of my guests on this show today.
And you're welcome.
Thank you. And I will talk to you all soon. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day. Bye.